Welcome everyone to Friday 15 with Master B2B. My name is Brian Beck, and I'm here with Andy Hoar. Did I say my name right? I said Brian Beck. That's hopefully
It's just
Brian
one word.
Beck. That's right, one word. Anyhow, folks, welcome to Friday 15, and today we've got a special session on AI tokens gone wild. Right, Andy?
Well, yeah, but we have to point this out, don't we? That you're wearing this interesting shirt that
What about my shirt?
is. Remember, Jared told us there's a term for this. I don't remember what it is, but when your shirt moves around, you got stripes in your
Oh,
shirt.
really?
I can't remember what the term
That's
for it
enough
is,
for me.
but
Okay,
Jared will
yeah,
have to. Jared
I'm
will have to
pixelated.
weigh in and tell us what that is.
I'll show my age. I'm Max Headroom. Remember that guy?
Oh yeah.
Anyhow, we got a great Friday 15 for you today. We're going to talk first about some breaking news. Everybody, look at this, Andy. This is incredible. Amazon this week announced they had surpassed Walmart in terms of total revenue with $716.9 billion versus Walmart's $213.2 billion. Incredible, numbers here, Andy. But Amazon is now, I think you and I were talking ahead of time, the largest company by revenue in the world. Is that right?
Yeah, it
That's
is. And this was, I think, it was announced in March, so it's not exactly super breaking news, but I don't think it happened quietly. Nobody sort of put two and two together and said, wait, $717 billion in annual revenue. But there's a couple of interesting stories here. One is that I think almost 20% of that revenue is not retail revenue. And so unlike Walmart, where it's like 95% retail revenue, Amazon has used the technology to build this empire and shared that with other people, which to me is the kind of big story. I remember saying years ago, like in the 20 teens, that why hasn't Walmart done something similar with its logistics infrastructure, its fulfillment capability? Because, it's like what 90% of America lives within 10 miles of a Walmart. Well, why aren't they doing this even for competitors? Just like AWS. I remember when Amazon, you remember this back in the day, when Amazon ran Target's website.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I looked it up before the call because they ran it for 10 years from 2001 to 2011.
Yep.
Now, and remember Google powered Yahoo's search for many years? This is a way of thinking. And Amazon has that way of thinking. Walmart only recently kind of came into that thinking because it turns out in 2020, they did actually open it's Walmart Fulfillment Services, where they're actually providing that capability, almost like Fulfillment by Amazon, but the Walmart version of it. But 2020, during the pandemic, I mean, why didn't they do that 10 years earlier? Imagine how more revenue they could have had if they'd done that earlier.
It's easy to say, though, Andy. I mean, you think about the choices Amazon makes as a business, and I've been a student of Amazon for, almost 20 years. They make counterintuitive decisions that run counter to traditional ways of thinking about business. I mean, think about this for a moment. Back
they
in
have a monopoly on that. Anybody can do that. It's just the way they
think. But you're a big legacy company, Walmart. How old is Walmart? 100 years old. Same with our distribution and manufacturing audience. I mean, these companies are older. They're thinking. They're conservative in how they think, and they don't want to blow up their traditional businesses. And that's, Amazon takes a completely contrarian approach to business. I mean, they introduced marketplace selling back 20 years ago when everything was sold first party. Amazon bought and sold the products. They introduced 3P. So all these competition within their own website, that's an insane decision. I mean, that caused a huge uprising, right?
And there's some that can be taken to the extreme for sure. But I would argue that Amazon's not necessarily contrary in its thinking as much as it is, more importantly, following the money. Amazon realized that AWS could make them a lot of money. And what I'm surprised by, my critique of Walmart is, did they just figure out in 2020 that Walmart fulfillment services would actually make them money? Really?
Yeah.
I believe that probably what happened was sometime around 2005 or 2010, somebody at Walmart said, hey, why don't we do this for other companies? And it probably worked its way up to the executive ranks, and they probably gave some version of the answer that you just gave, which is, oh, we don't do that, or that might cannibalize, or blah, blah, blah. And nobody said, wait a minute, why don't we model this thing out and follow the money?
let's find the Walmart person and bring them onto our Friday
I would
15.
love to know why it took them until 2020 to do this, because it's their
Yeah.
version of AWS.
All right. Well,
Really
we got to get to our AI gone wild here, Andy. But before we do that, quick public service announcement, folks. Our Master B2B Forum is available for you for practitioners. It's free. Go to our website, masterb2b.com, look for forum and sign up. And you can join the hundreds and hundreds of folks that are on that platform and conversing every day about issues. We've had, I don't know, tons of posts this week about people looking for things, looking for roles, looking at technologies, and people responding. So I encourage you to take a look at that. It's a great place. And again, there's no cost and it's practitioners only. So we got to get into our topic today. And this is an important one, Andy, because it speaks directly to the evolving nature of the use of AI within organizations and some of the gotchas, right? So the topic today is, are AI token costs getting out of control, and will those costs impact the cost of your technology usage and even the underlying software platforms that you're using in your business? And these are things that you need to know as a head of e-commerce or digital executive at your company or marketing, whatever your role is, because this can impact your P&L. We saw this come to light over the last few weeks. I mean, look at this, Andy. Wall Street Journal: tech firms aren't just encouraging their workers to use AI, they're enforcing it. So, what's happened here is that companies are mandating the use of AI. They even have internal competitions. They're awarding people the vacations if they use it. It's in performance reviews. So companies are pushing really hard on people to use AI in their jobs, but there's an underlying consequence to that, right?
Well, can we
Yeah,
just
go ahead.
pause for a second and
Sure.
recognize something? The
Yeah,
title of this podcast was, "Are AI token costs getting out of control?" Do
right.
you think 3 years ago, you or I would have thought that today we would be doing a podcast with that title to it? Just imagine
No,
what we're gonna be doing
I
in
know,
3
it's
years.
incredible. It's
I don't even
incredible.
know what a
No,
token was until about 2 years ago, and here we
right,
are talking about how it's in some ways bankrupting some companies, right?
right, right. Well,
So,
look at this, right? Go ahead.
yeah, well, so what's happening is the companies, as we know, and you just illustrated, told their employees, hey, spend like there's no tomorrow. Use AI. In fact, you said they were ordered to. Some people got fired if they didn't use AI. And then what
Right.
happened was nobody was keeping track of the bill. And then all of a sudden the bill came due. And so there's a couple of really interesting stories about this. What spawned this was, I think many people saw this article. I think it was last week,
Yeah.
that it was Axios. Yeah, there it is. AI sticker shock hits corporate America. There was a company that spent $500 million in 1 month on Claude tokens.
How do you do that? That's that's crazy.
Well,
Wow.
actually, I've been doing a little digging around. I asked some people, like, who was this company? And nobody seems to know exactly who this company was. I'm sure it's probably on Reddit someplace, but
Right.
the belief is this company was using it for compute power. So it isn't,
Okay.
GM or, 3M or something like that with the employees playing with it. It's somebody who's using this, to write code. And so it's got
Right.
to be like a really large software company.
Yeah. It's
But
like Oracle or something, right? Yeah. Or
what's
yeah.
that?
It's like Oracle or Salesforce or somebody who's really, yeah,
Well,
or
I'll tell
Google.
you, it's not Salesforce, because I actually asked them. It's funny
Oh,
you
did
bring this
you?
up, because I was with them this week. I said, "Is this you?" And they go, "No, no, no." And they said, "No, it's definitely a company that was
Oh,
buying a lot of Claude tokens." But the point is, they told these guys to do this, right? And so they went out,
right.
and then some really amazing numbers came back. So,
Incredible.
the $500 million, Uber,
Yeah.
we're going to talk about that in a moment. Uber said that they went through their token allocation budget in 3 months. It was their
Yeah.
annual budget.
Yeah. Right.
There's that article. And so the interesting part about this is their I think COO or CIO said, and quote, "I'm back to the drawing board because the budget I thought I would need is blown away already." And so these guys are telling their engineers, go write all your code using Claude. And
Right.
so that costs money. It costs
Right.
money.
Well,
And so, yeah, go ahead.
go ahead. I was going to ask you a question, Andy, because I mean, you just wrote a book about this, about bot to bot and AI and all the rest. I mean, all the investment we hear about in Google 180 billion, Amazon 200 billion dollars this year, 2026. all this spending on AI, and there's a lot of that is infrastructure spending. I mean, is there a projection on the cost of these tokens coming down? It has to be, right? I mean, that's kind of these guys are spending, but there's going to be some efficiency, don't you think?
Yeah, and this is the open question. In fact, we're going to talk about this at the end. What happens next? Because this is
Right.
unsustainable. There are people out there, if you just read kind of the message boards, when you hear things like $500 million on Claude code,
Mm-hmm.
did
Yep.
anybody ever audit that? Is anybody like keeping track of what the ROI of this is? Nobody seems to know that either. But there's no way that
Mm-hmm.
these costs can continue because companies will not be able to afford it. And the history of this is that the prices come down. In fact, there's an interesting parallel some are starting to make between this and the fiber optic cable build out back in 1997.
Yeah.
Remember Global
Yep.
Crossing? Remember that company?
I was in
Yeah.
the telecom business. I worked for AT&T way back
So
then.
you were
Yeah,
the problem?
I was the problem. Yeah, I drove all the costs up.
No, remember that
No, it's a good analogy. It's a good analogy. Go ahead and finish it.
all these T1 lines were like $10,000, $20,000 a month. And
Yep.
then what happened was, I think a couple of companies merged their operations. They built out more infrastructure, more bandwidth, more supply, so to speak, and it drove the cost way down. And so that's what's going to happen. I think the T1 cost
Right.
went from like $10,000 a month to $1,000 a month. And all of a sudden, Global Crossing's projections were all wrong. And the company ended up going into bankruptcy. That's not going to happen here. But
Right.
there's no way that supply is not going to arise to meet demand, which most people predict that these token costs are going to go down. Now, the countervailing trend with that, though, is that the cost per token is going to go down, but people think the usage is going to explode because people are going to find more and more uses for these. So we could have two things happening at the same time. The cost per token goes down to a reasonable number, but the usage continues to skyrocket.
Right. Right. It's fascinating. This article here from Fortune, Microsoft reports are exposing AI's real cost problem. Using the tech is more expensive than paying human employees. Andy, do you think is this going to cause a reaction where, folks are going to go back to old school using people, right? Versus AI? I mean, it's going to slow the trend of pushing people to use AI. What do you think?
I think that was just a comparative analogy. In fact, we're going to show a slide in a second that talks about that. But I think they're just kind of saying, like, these costs are out of control to the point
Yep.
where it's costing as much as a human, which means why are we doing this? But the
Right.
solution to this is to be more efficient with the use of tokens, not to reconsider humans for this, and they won't do that.
Oh,
But
I
yeah,
don't know.
on screen here, you'll see that there was a startup company that humble bragged the fact that they had like four person AI startup where they were spending $113,000 a month on tokens.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And somebody did a comparative and said, wait a minute, what if you just hired somebody to do the programming instead? And then the calculation they came to is it was 21 times more expensive to use the AI tokens than the human. Now, the problem with that is we don't know what that AI startup company was doing. We also can't
Of course.
calculate the speed with which they were doing this stuff,
Of
what kind of
course.
revenue. So it comes down to this: what's the ROI of the AI tokens, right? That's really the question here because that startup company was humble bragging. They got criticized, but they were great. It's working for us.
Right. Well, and I mean, that ROI question is a great one, but it's going to vary dramatically, Andy, based on the use case, isn't it? You know what
It
I
is.
mean?
Yeah, it is. And so you do have some people who are using it, to write the same thing 10 times because they want to change one word. And
Right.
so every time you do that, it requires more tokens, right? But then the thing with that is that the people providing the tokens should be smart enough to know that if you just change a word or two, you don't need to
Uh,
redo it all. So right now, again, there's some of that going on as well, where the people selling the tokens, if people are going to use it indiscriminately, then why should I spend my time trying to track it?
and then you got people, encouraged to do it, and people respond to incentives. So if you're sending people on vacations to Tahiti because they're
That's
using
right.
AI in your company, guess what? They're going to use it for everything. What should I eat for lunch today?
That's
No
right.
different.
How
You
did you
know what
use
I
it
mean?
today? Well, I wrote 5 emails that, well, it's basically the same email, but I just had it write one separate word and you told me to use the tokens. So yeah, I
Right.
mean, there's going to be more accounting of this. It reminds me a little bit of like phone calls back in the day. I remember we're old enough to know that long distance phone calls,
Oh
cost
yeah.
time was the only time we could talk to our grandparents and actually enjoyed it because we knew that they were going to say at some point, this is costing a lot of money.
Do you remember the rotary phone? Okay, we're aging ourselves here.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
then
no,
when it converted over to cell phones, remember, then there was
yeah,
it cost nothing. And like, how do you get
right.
off the phone now? But
That's right. That's right. But I mean, this is enormous. This is an amazing stat, Andy. I saw this is all from Wall Street Journal. Google is now processing 40 quadrillion tokens a year. Is that even a number? 40
well,
quadrillion tokens?
I looked it up just to see how you would kind of scope that number. And here's what it said.
Yeah.
If you count it out loud once per second, so basically just count, it would take you
Yeah.
1.3 billion years to count to 40 quadrillion. And this is,
That's
again, I think the marvel of this too is the fact that we have technology in place to be able to track all this stuff.
I know it's insane. It's insane. So let's put the rubber to the road here, Andy. So you're in the world of e-com platforms, search. I mean, you evaluate these tools at a very deep level. At the same time, you've just written a book on AI, bot to bot, and you've got a lot of knowledge around that side. What is this? What are the implications? Let's go back to the question that started all this. What are the implications for your B2B e-commerce executive? What is going to happen to the cost of their e-com platform? Because these guys are all, and search and all these other tools they're using, because they're all using AI, right? All these tools are embedding it. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, and you look at these things, but they keep talking about how they're AI first. Everything's now AI. I'm solution provider.ai. It's like the buzz. It's all you hear about. What is the practicality on the cost side of using these platforms? What do you think?
I think it's going to be probably three things. I think it's going to shift the way they're built from a kind of a
Oh,
fixed
yeah.
version to a variable version, which we're starting to see
Okay.
that. But then it's going to
Yep.
moderate and then probably
Hmm.
stabilize. It's going to be a consumption-based model. It has to be. You can't have a variable model and a fixed model. You
Right.
can't just say, pay us $1,000 a year or a month for this. And companies like Shopify are going to have to grapple with this. They're less expensive. Like, pay us $1,000 a month for your website, but go ahead and write any code you want. And I mean, there are people. There was one guy I read recently who he had a ChatGPT subscription, and he spent the equivalent, which is $20 a month. He spent the equivalent of $200,000 in 1 month on usage. But because he had this $20 a month plan with unlimited usage, that's going to have to go away at some point. And then we know this from the work we've done where people price things. Initially, there's a consumption based per unit, but then
Yep.
people like maxes and mins, and so there'll be a cap on it at some point.
Yep.
It'll moderate itself and then it'll stabilize. But right now, on
Mhm.
both sides of the equation, I think the people providing the tokens have got to get a better job of accounting for this, which they've had no incentive to do. And then the people on the spending, the consumption side of this have got to get better about how they use this stuff and not use it for absolutely everything all the time. So
Mhm.
it will balance. The water will find the equilibrium, but the price
Well,
of these things are going to come down. The question is, how's the
yeah.
usage going to go? That's the real question.
Well, and I think that's really the ultimate. We have precedent for this sort of thing in the market, which, I mean, think about infrastructure bills. I mean, all the way back to the U.S. Postal Service and then long distance telephone service and all the infrastructure. You made the analogy of T1s and T3s for business data, communication. I mean, once the infrastructure is in place, yeah, and that's why I think the cost will come down, which is why I think you see companies that can make the investments, Amazon, Google, others making the investments because they're betting on the fact that this is the next generation of it's the next data infrastructure, it's the next telephone service, it's the next postal service, it's these huge investments, and these companies can make them, and there's not many companies that can. I mean, right? I
Well,
mean,
yeah,
the
and I
amount of
think
money.
there's an analogy within an analogy here that actually illustrates the point, and it's energy.
Oh, sure.
Imagine if for a second there was a new form of energy that came out and it said, Brian, you can use it in unlimited fashion for $20 a month. Let's say
Right.
it was nuclear fission or something like that. And you can use it unlimited for $20 a month. Everybody said, well, great. I'll just leave the lights on all the time. I'll turn the heat all the way up or the air conditioning all the way up. I'll have
Right.
everything running,
Yep.
and people would overconsume. Well,
right?
that's what's actually happening right now with these build outs. That's the single greatest component
Yeah.
cost for all these guys is these data centers. And so I think and by the way, energy is not on a fixed basis, right? It's not like you pay a certain amount per month. You have to pay based on your usage. That's what will stabilize and moderate a lot of this stuff.
Unless, of course, you're in California, in which case they start to charge you based on your income. Do you hear about this anyway?
Well, hey, you're the one who lives there.
Anyway, it's crazy. Anyway, folks, we got to leave it there for this week. These are problems and challenges that our executives that are part of our Nexus program get answers to. How do you use AI? What's going to happen with all of this in your business? What implications do these cost and things have for you and your technology stack? Nexus is a personal digital lifeline for you as a B2B e-commerce or digital or marketing executive who's in charge of your world, of advancing the digital capabilities of your company. We're doing some really exciting work here. We have a panel of experts that are available to you. We call them our expert advisors. If you're a member of our Nexus program, we're helping with sourcing projects, getting the right people to help you identify your challenges and create solutions for you. So this is a great program. I encourage you to take a look, masterb2b.com, and look for Nexus. You can find out more information. Finally, I want to remind everyone that our Friday 15 is available on podcast form in your favorite podcast service, Apple, Spotify, on our website, YouTube, etc. So just search for Master B2B and you'll find us so you can listen to us while you're doing laundry or driving around in your car. Anyway, and please give us a review. Thank you all for listening. Andy, any final words before we go to our go off to do things?
Spend the weekend. No, I just keep thinking about what are we going to be talking about in 3 years. If we weren't even talking about tokens 3 years ago, what are we going to be talking about in 3 years?
Exactly. Who knows, man? Could be interesting. We'll be just replaced by AI. We won't even be talking.
That's true.
Right?
That's true.
So, anyway, folks, we'll see you next week on our next Friday 15. Thanks for joining.